So today we are talking about relationships, and I don't know if any of you are aware of Rajesh. I know some people are, some people who have been to Kamalaya before. Rajesh, we'll talk about that in a little while with Rajesh, but Rajesh was a mentor at Kamalaya for 10 years, so he knew a lot of the people who would go, and I know we had clients who would come back and say, "Wow, he's changed my life." He's incredible. Him and Smitha, his wife too, and we've been chatting with Rajesh because he's running some retreats in Portugal, which we'll talk about later. But I was looking at some of the subjects, and one of them was about relationships. And I started to think about it, and I was like, wow, this is really the one thing, isn't it, that causes people stress? It's like the thing, because Rajesh and I were just chatting, people aren't taught how to be in relationships. We're not like given lessons on that. And it is the one thing that causes us anxiety and stress, and we're going to delve into that. So I'm really, really happy that Rajesh is here to talk to us about that in detail. So I think we'll just kick it off. Rajesh, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. Rajesh is in India right now. So
thank you, Stella.
What time is it for you over there?
It's 3:35, so
okay.
Afternoon. So it's nice to meet all of you, and we are like meeting across continents, and that's always beautiful. And this is how relationships are also formed. Suddenly we all know each other. This is beautiful. And thanks, Stella, for inviting me and for coming up with this idea in such a short notice. We just talked about it a couple of days back, and then now we are here. So it's beautiful. Yeah. Yes.
That's me all over, Rajesh. Everything is like quick, short notice. I drive people crazy. I drive my team crazy with this stuff. But anyway, sometimes you just have these ideas and you think, I just need to do it. Let's do it. So it is a pleasure to have you here. I think if we can start off talking about you, so some people are aware of you, some people know who you are, but others aren't. If you can give us a little bit of background, because you've been in this work for quite a while, but just talk us through the trajectory and where you started and why you are in this field now.
Yes, sure. I started my career as an accountant banker. So that was my first job when I was 19. And I was kind of a youngest in my bank. And it was like a wow, 19-year-old, and then you're already a chartered accountant, and all of this lined up. And then a few years later, I think I was 21 or something, 22, I met my spiritual teacher. It was sheerly by accident, which is basically my mother went to some event which I had seen as a poster on a wall, and I showed her, like, there is an event, something happening around here with a big man with a big beard, and then it looks spooky. So my mom, who was interested in all these things, actually went to that event. And then eventually I got connected to my spiritual teacher, and it took, of course, a couple of years. So by 23, I had become a monk. So because my life changed, because we are speaking about relationships today, the first thing that changed in my life was my relationship towards my family. And I attended a couple of courses, not directly by my teacher, but by other instructors. And then I suddenly understood what is wrong there and what was stopping me. I'm a super shy guy, very angry. My first image of myself is being angry and bulldozing people with my head. So that is me. I'm a Taurus as well. So are you there with me, Stella?
Yes, we're here. We're listening to you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You froze. Right. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, and that is where my journey started at 23 as a spiritual monk, and then learned a lot, practiced a lot, and then started teaching people and working with people for many, many years. So I was a monk for 14 years, and then that's where most of my practices come from, my understanding. We worked on different philosophies, from Buddhism, Hinduism, from psychology, everything. My teacher is one of the most brilliant spiritual teachers, I would say, in today's world, but he's not active now. He's more retired. He's a bit sick and old, but it put me in touch with real people and real life. So that's where my journey started and continued. So in 2010, I stopped being a monk for many reasons, mostly outside of me. And that's when I went to Thailand in Kamalaya and continued to be a teacher, to be a mentor. And in 2022, I left Kamalaya, and me and my wife Smita, we started this because we wanted to expand and do our retreats, which was always closer to our hearts, working on specific immersive experiences more so, instead of just meeting 1 hour here and there, but bringing an immersive experience where people have the opportunity to go deeper into themselves and work on specific aspects and bring the right tools and right understanding. So that is the reason where that is the path that I took. And it's been a brilliant path, I would say. It's been a lot of good and bad, like always, like everything else, doubts, moments of doubts, moments of understanding, clarity. But it has brought me in touch with thousands and thousands of people. It's like I've done events for nearly 100,000 people in one go, and
Wow.
every number of events. It's like travel to more than 30, 35 countries in the world to teach. So it's been my, how do I say, my whole life has been that, if you think
It's your
about that
path.
way.
It's your path, isn't it? It really has been your path. It's interesting that you became a monk so early on in your life, because I mean, for us in the Western world, the monk title isn't what does it mean being a monk in India exactly? Because we have
It's
views here of
actually,
being a monk, of being in a monastery and being shut off from the world. Is it a similar thing?
no, not exactly. If you can say, I was a monk with a BlackBerry and an Apple MacBook.
Okay.
So the only difference was I didn't own it personally. And then, of course, we had strict rules about ownership of money, and you have a lot of rules around. Of course, I was celibate through the whole period, and still I was 36, 37 in my life. So that was one of the prerequisites, and we embrace poverty, but as a personal poverty, I would say. It's not like, oh, you deny yourself everything, but you live in a community, and but I didn't live cloistered inside a monastery. After the first year and a half, then we were traveling a lot, teaching, going out into the world. So that was how it was. And I think it was a beautiful experience. No. Another thing is, when people see from outside, either they see it as suffocating on one side, or they see it as, wow, this must be amazing. It's neither of that. It's not suffocating, because we used to play cricket every other day, and we used to have this weekly movie day, like movie evening, and then we have this big movie hall and everyone watches movie together, and that's fun. So a lot of games, a lot of laughter, a lot of freedom, doing a lot of stuff within certain parameters, which is everywhere in every walk of life. And then the most brilliant two important things are the transformation that we undergo, the practices, the knowledge, and the application of that knowledge. That is one important thing that has changed my life. And second is touching people's lives. No, I wouldn't say with any amount of ego that, oh, I was instrumental in transforming people's life. Not at all. It just happened that I was in the right place in the right time, and it helped them. And that's what it is. And if at all, it is also hard work of every individual. Sometimes it culminates in the point where they get a transformation right there. And so I'm really, really happy to have witnessed many of these moments, and which keeps me grounded. If you see my highlight, it's not the my highlight of my life is not meeting famous people or having these large crowds or appearing on television and stuff. It's always these, somebody looks at you, gives a hug and has tears in their eyes and then say something nice. And then I think like, okay, my life has some meaning.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And again, I'm just coming back to the fact that you were called to that very early on in your life. A lot of people get to that later. I think maybe part of that is that I love the spirituality element in Indian like families and lives. Not all, but a lot. It's very much part of your culture, so it isn't pushed aside. But it allows, I think, it allows people to in India to really connect with that, you know, that spiritual element of ours, which is very important in life. You know, we push it aside, and we're very, you know, in the Western world, it's belittled a lot of the time, and it's very important. So thank you for giving us a bit of a background on you. It's always interesting to hear what I mean, if you could say, I was going to say, well, what drove you to your work? But it just naturally happened from a very young age, right? It's just nothing.
Yes, and no, it was one important thing was we were going through a lot of suffering as well in the family at that time, and it was a tough period, I would say. I think, you know, it's also an element that drives people towards transformation. Usually, suffering and pain help us to see things differently and find other solutions than the beaten path that we usually take.
Yeah, yes, true, very true. So let's talk about relationships. As I mentioned in the first newsletter, none of us are an island. You know, I think we can get so much joy out of fulfilling relationships, but it isn't something that we're taught, or it's not really talked about. Let's talk about the different types of relationships, because usually when you say relationships, people think like romantic relationships, you know, with a life partner or that kind of thing. But there are so many relationships in our lives, right?
True, true. See, life is relationship. No, it's not like we cannot define relationship as something separate in life. You know, if you identify yourself, we identify ourselves as what? You know, in relationship to a place, to a set of other people. So all our identity is tied up in relationships. You know, our relationship with money, our relationship with everything around us, with nature, with people, with ourselves, with our mind, with our thoughts. So without, if you remove all of these plugs outside, and then if you see like, where do I stand? Maybe we don't stand. There is no standing outside of relationships. And if you take relationship with people, all these different relationships, different forms like parents and family and spouse, partner, children, to extended ones, friendships and colleagues at work and even strangers. And then we relate with different groups and different ideas. All of these things engage with different parts of ourselves. So, you know, it's like eating different food groups. You know, everything enriches us. And then if there is a sufficient balance in that, then we are really healthy. If we say like, I don't want to eat anything other than only carrots in my life, so I have only one relationship in my life, which is carrot, you know, we become maybe orange in a few months. That's what becomes. So it is true to all relationships as well, you know. So some we may have a little bit, some we may have a lot of it, some we are comfortable, some we are uncomfortable, but they represent different parts of ourselves and the needs that arise from these different parts. That's why I would never throw away a relationship, even though sometimes I may find it quite difficult. But then I may throw some rotten relationships. If I have enough carrots, I may throw one or two out. So that is also true. I'm not throwing a whole group out. You know, for example, some people say, like, I've been hurt by men or women, so I have nothing to do with them anymore. That is useless, not helpful.
So why why do relationships cause us so much stress and anxiety? What is the underlying kind of reason and factors around that?
See, this is a question everyone here can answer, I think. And see, one of the important things is expectations. Fundamentally, we all expect to be loved as we are and accepted as we are. I just want somebody to love me for what I am. And the closer the relationship is, the more I expose myself as what I am. That's why it is difficult to maintain close relationships. It is easier to be friends with somebody when you're in a train or a plane and then you sit next to them for 2 hours and then you even open yourself so much, then you walk away. That is much easier. But closer we come to somebody, our expectations to be accepted as we are is higher. I once met a lady from London, and quite beautiful and accomplished and everything. And she told me this fact, like, I wake up, I go to bed, and then I fall asleep after my partner is asleep so that I can remove my makeup. And then I wake up before him to apply my makeup. And then I asked her, like, has he ever seen your real face? And she said, no, I love that.
Wow.
So that was a bit extreme, but it was true. She told me that, and I was like, wow.
Example, right? That's a good illustration. That's an extreme illustration of feeling accepted or wanting to feel that you are accepted for who you are without having to portray yourself as something different.
Yes.
Other people's expectations. But it would be interesting if she had even asked her partner, like maybe her partner would have really appreciated seeing her true self.
Maybe it's nothing to do with that partner. It has to do with how she sees herself. Because I met her in Kamalaya, she had an appointment with me, and just before that she had a massage. So she had rushed to her room to apply some makeup before she came to see me. So this is an extreme case, but even then, this is our biggest fear, is to be rejected as what we are, and for what we are. But our biggest fulfillment and a sense of belonging also arises from that. If someone looks at us and says like, hey, you know what? I know how it is to be unhappy. I know how it is to be angry like you. I know how it is to be jealous like you. And then we feel such a kinship with that person. Like, really? Yeah, I can see you, I can feel you. And then this person doesn't judge you. This is what we want. This is what we are searching. This is what we are searching all around us. Sometimes we project ourselves to be too good so that we can be accepted easily. Sometimes we show off all the bad stuff initially. This is one play in our head, so that to test the other person, like, okay, you know what? I'm really bad here. What do you say now? Okay, I'm really selfish. What do you say now? Are you still hanging around me? Are you still going to accept me? So this is the way we test relationships constantly to see if they are still there with us. Do they still love us? Do they still care for us? Even if I go down and show all my cards. And this creates a lot of stress. The reason being, one, we are stressed. Then the other person is also playing the same game. It's not like everyone is sorry, I didn't get the right word, but they are also doing the same thing. So people are playing the same game constantly in different ways. That is the challenge in relationships. So our parents play the game, we play the game, friends play the game. It's not like a bad game with an agenda. It is most often it is a pure game with just an expectation to be loved and understood. That's it.
That's it's very simple when you put it that way. But we're not taught that. We're not taught by, well, not everybody, but most people, I guess, are not taught by their parents or anyone. Like, actually, your true essence is you want to be loved and understood. That's it. And so bear that in mind every time you relate to your partner or your colleague or your family or your child or whoever it is that you're in a relationship with, I guess. Because how about control? Because this is another one about wanting to control. Well, I guess the lady with the makeup wanted to control how she appeared to everybody. So that's like an element of control and I guess protection, to protect herself. But how about trying to control how other people interact with you? Because someone may say something to you that you don't like, right? Or someone may do something that you don't like. And that for me is a fundamental thing. People get triggered very easily in relationships by a word that someone says. Or I'll give you an example. I'm going to be very vulnerable and share with you something that happened in my my personal life this morning. So this sign behind me fell down. Okay, this Wellbeing Escape sign fell down. And I asked my husband this morning if he could put it back up for me. And he did, bless him, he did. But I was still in the house upstairs and I didn't hear him leave to come out because this is the garden room. And so I came down and I said to him, can you please just go and do that? And he was very upset because he'd already done it, right? And he said to me, I've done it. And it caused like so much friction because I didn't respect or think, or I was just rushing and I just, opened my mouth and it came out. But something like that, this is just a very simple example, but something like that can happen daily in lots and lots of interactions with everybody. Like, it could be with your colleagues, with your kids, it doesn't matter, with everybody. What do we do about that? I mean, I'm aware of it. I still did it, but I'm aware of it,
See, we don't have to find big solutions for these issues. These things happen. The only thing is, how do you respond after this happens? Because you are tired, maybe you were busy, maybe you didn't see it, maybe you told him and then thought about it again, but didn't notice. So all of these things is normal occurrence. So this will happen. But how do you deal with it after the event? So how do you act with your husband around this event? And how does your husband respond to this event? So that is what learning is, that is what understanding is. If you go to him and then if you continue like, yeah, this time you did it, but usually you don't do it. That's why I had to remind you. I always have to remind you because you never do it in time. So this time, you did it. So if you had said something like that, it would be like basically putting the knife in and turning it a bit more, which would increase the problem. If you have gone there like, oh, really, what, I was just tired and then sorry that I didn't notice it. And thank you so much. And if you had shown your vulnerability in that moment, that you simply made a genuine mistake with no great agenda or great, negative intent there, that openness would stand him down. So he doesn't have to attack you. So this is the vulnerability, also there is this vulnerability involved in that situation. And from his perspective, he could over time, as couples do, or in any relationship we do, we create certain models in our life, in our mind, certain habits, and certain judgments. He may have this judgment like, okay, every time I do something, but I never get appreciated enough or in time. So if he adds this one to that list, then he is making things worse. So he may add that one to the list, like, okay, one more thing. So when the next incident happens, like, Stella always never appreciates me. Whatever I do is never seen by her. So this is, he may not say, this is something that could run in his head. And this is where he might withdraw a tiny, tiny bit, a little step backwards into his own shell, like maybe I should not share this. Maybe there is no point to this, picking up a fight. Maybe there is one extra line that I don't have to expose myself. So these are issues that we need to understand. Mistakes happen. We get overwhelmed by emotions. That is all okay. In the long run, we'll work on that. But in the short run, immediately, what is the comeback? How do we act on it right after? So that is the important thing. Oh, so we lost our, Stella is back. One moment.
I'm sorry, I got switched off there. You see, I had an instinct to make you a co-host.
Good. We were all there.
I'm back. Yeah. So no, thank you for that, because I think you hit the nail on the head there. I did actually apologize because I did, but I wanted to just use that as a tiny example, because these are the things that escalate during our day-to-day interactions with people, whoever it may be, and then they become that. And then I feel like we can close ourselves off, because I could have gone down the first route and said, well, you never do things on time. And that is me wanting to be right. Okay, because I didn't want to be vulnerable. And that would have been me saying, well, it's your fault, not mine, that I behaved that way, and that happens a lot, doesn't it? What causes that? What makes people do that?
From past hurts or disappointments, we create certain patterns, and judgments. So slowly we get frustrated over them over time. And then we believe the only way to communicate my pain is to cause them pain. So this is what many people do in relationship. You shouted at me, you put me down, now I will show you how it feels. So I will hurt you exactly in the point that it hurts you. So we all know, because we come closer, we all know each other's trigger points. We all know where it hurts hard for the other person. So we use it out of our pain. So I'm pain. I want to show you how it hurts. Believing, wrongly, I would say, believing that it would help them see my pain. It's like, each one hurting each other in the belief that the other person would see how much I'm in pain. But nobody sees pain, because everyone sees their own pain. And then it gets escalated and escalated. And in some relationships, people create a habit of this escalation. And then they are always in this highly sensitive, little moments. And then this warring, this what you call sparring, all the time. So that becomes the base of the relationship. That becomes the the template of their relationship. For anything, they hurt each other strongly. They throw words at each other, like, I will leave you, this, I never loved you. So all of these things are so easy to say. If somebody is saying those things so easily in a relationship, I would say, like, wow. So the base itself is so vulnerable, so easy that they get caught up there. And, Jane has said here in this message, this is so exhausting to keep up the appearance. It's absolutely exhausting. That's the only reason why we are all tired without even having big problems sometimes. So we are just tired fighting this battle, like, who is going to reject me where? And, that is walking on eggshells is one of the worst things that could happen.
But that's subconscious, right? Most people don't realize that they're in that state, because they don't know what's triggering this kind of behavior. I mean, I'm sure everybody here knows at least one person who is on the attack all the time, who feels like they're being, or finds it really hard, or gets triggered really easily, finds it really hard to maintain relationships, or gets triggered with the slightest thing. Someone can say the slightest thing and they could just, go off the handle. And there are those people, and it's a fascinating perspective that you've put on it, that it's just their fear and their hurt that's making them
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
It's a protective mechanism, right?
See, there are people who are defensive, there are people who are offensive. Both people are not different from each other. The defensive people are trying to defend from being hurt. The offensive people are preempting a hurt. That's it. So it's like I slap you before you slap me. Right. So that I will not get hurt. So this is the kind of approach. It's also a learned behavior. It's not an original behavior. It's a learned behavior. Maybe they've been hurt in the past, or maybe they've seen this behavior in somebody really close or some role model in life. So automatically they become, they're like, that's where the bullies are, they slap somebody, they kick somebody, they put somebody down, and so that they feel they are safer. Now, you also brought another one, the word triggers. People trigger me, they hurt me, they say these words, they do these things that trigger me again and again. One thing I wanted to really show here, please pay attention here. See, we always see as though the other person is pushing my buttons. The truth is, we have a big red button says, don't touch me, in the front and the back and here and everywhere. And then we say, but I want to come closer to you as well. So somebody is going to elbow you, someone is going to touch you, and if they are getting irritated, something is going to happen. So I would say nobody triggers you. You get triggered by others. See, for any transformation to happen, we should take this first step. Like, I am getting triggered. Why? Because I have a sensitivity towards some behaviors, some words spoken, some things. I'll give you an example, like Stella mentioned example. I'll tell you this from my own life, of course. It's a few years or many years, I don't know when, but it was one day I was in the kitchen, I was cutting an avocado, and all relaxed, and my wife walked in, and then she looked at me and she said, Rajesh, this is not how you cut an avocado. How long? You don't even know how to cut an avocado.
That's
Very
such
simple
a thing to say, though. I've got to say, it's such a woman thing. Yeah, carry on.
So this was not the problem, because in the kitchen, if somebody says you don't know what to do, I don't have big ego around that space, so I can let it go. If somebody says the same around my teaching, there's a bit more ego there. But here, it's not much of an ego. But that is not the trigger point. Then she laughed in a particular way. I cannot say how it is, but she laughed in a particular way, ha ha ha, something like that. Boom. Rajesh of the teenage or pre-teenage, being bullied in school, the small boy, everyone was taking him for a ride, everyone was laughing at him derisively. Zoom, everything exploded in that moment. And I turned around and said, how can you laugh at me like that? Do you think I'm a nobody? But luckily, with all my practice, this statement stayed in my head. And then my body tensed up, and I was like sitting there with a knife in my hand. And she walked away, and I was there. I wanted to say 100 different things, wanted to ask these questions. How dare you? What do you think? And I want to throw this in the bin. And I want to know everything that was happening there. But only one thing I started, this is the practice I have. So I said, Rajesh, this is your anger. This is your pain. This is your hurt. Wait, let it pass. So I was holding it tight, continuing with the avocado, breathing hard. My body all the energy is going up to my head. All of this is happening, and I'm aware of it. And then after a minute or two, it goes to the peak, all the questions crowding in my head, all the images of the past, and then feeling this small boy being bullied, and then everything, all in a fraction of a, like this, and then coming down and down and down and down. In 3 minutes, I had nothing to say to my wife, because one thing I realized was, it was my one big button. She inadvertently stumbled upon it. So do I have to have a talk with her? No. Could I tell her like, okay, that particular way of laughing, would she be able to understand it? No. Even if she is able to understand, even if I communicate that, I am putting my responsibility onto her shoulders. I'm saying, you're responsible for my anger from here on, which is absolute nonsense, unfair. We believe that, I communicated, I told her, don't ever say this, it triggers me. So from now on, it's as though it is their responsibility for your triggers. I'm saying like, this is nonsense. Just because you lived with your triggers all your life and suddenly one day you just transfer it to the spouse. And then you say that person is from today responsible for not making me angry or upset. I'm saying take responsibility for your triggers, even though you may have communicated it 1,000 times. Still, you are responsible for your emotions, for your trauma coming out. You're responsible. So that is important about triggers. We believe like, oh, everyone triggers me. No, you have a big trigger, it gets sensitive. So you have to look into yourself and work on that. I hope it makes sense.
Absolutely, because it is about, that's why I called it empowerment as well, because it's like becoming empowered in your relationship and not blaming everybody else for the things that make you unhappy within the relationship. A lot of it is within, right? But how in that moment, I mean, obviously you've had years of training, but how in that moment, give us some little tips of what we can do in those moments when we feel ourselves with our big red button or our big red button being pushed. What can we do to just stop like you did and work through it without it escalating and it becoming a really big thing? Or even, there's two ways of handling those scenarios. You could have really lost it and gone crazy and thrown away the avocado and scream and shout, whatever, and cause a really big situation with Smither. Or you could have really internalized it as well, and it would have grown and grown within you to be much more toxic to you, I think, as well, as you continue. And I think there's those two, there's three ways of handling it. The way you did, and then there's the other two. How can we make sure we don't do the other two and we just work through that? What are some tips around that?
See, if you have already created a strong habit on either one of these ways of handling it, I would start after the way you do it. Suppose, imagine I had shouted, I had done all these things and thrown a tantrum around that. When that energy is gone and then it's going down, usually it is replaced with some regret and some guilty feeling, and then feeling, or shame. So that is where I would start. I would say, start there and say, okay, I reacted badly, but I take responsibility. So start taking responsibility at the end of that cycle. So what happens is, slowly you don't beat yourself up, and you are not continuously holding against the other. So you have to ensure that, because in the heightened emotional state, awareness goes out of the window. It's not easy. And that's why I said with practice, it becomes better. But in the heightened emotional state, no. So don't try to stop it in that moment. It's not possible. It is possible over time. But initially, let that loop go. And then at the end of it, be careful that you don't go into the regret guilt mode or into like, yeah, but she deserves it kind of mode. So catch yourself there and say, take responsibility, it's mine. I got triggered. Yes, Rajesh, it's yours, it's yours, it's yours. Take responsibility. Yes, the next time I'm going to be more aware of how I'm reacting to it. So become aware of post-reaction, reaction, then come to the reaction itself. So after, say, a few weeks, then you will find out like, oh my goodness, I'm shouting and then it's not going to end well. So you cut down your shouting. Then the next few weeks, if you are focused on this, then next few weeks you are about to say something really bad and hurtful, and then you stop it. So you then come closer and closer to the hurt that way, closer and closer. No? So that's a good question, Jane. I will come back to you.
That was on my list, Jane, because
I don't see Jane. Who is Jane?
Yeah.
Ah, there she is. Hi. Yeah. I'm in a list view. So yes, it is true. Let me gather my thoughts. So slowly and steadily, you get back to greater awareness, greater choices in handling that situation, and greater balance. It is the true for the other one, where you suppress and then you build stories and add up to your existing list of grievances and hurts of the past, and then judgments.
That's more toxic, right? That's more damaging.
Both are damaging, I would say.
Okay.
Yes, because see, people say express it and it's gone, but we don't know what the damage happened to the other person in that situation. Maybe they would internalize it and then they will go on that cycle. So, we don't know. But overall, expressing is better than suppressing everything. I would say that, yes, of course. And coming to Jane's point here, yes, in a relationships, your partner should also need to doing the same when the triggers are pushed. Otherwise, it's a bit one-sided. No, it's a question of who blinks first. So, the thing is, we get egged on by the other person in any fight. And we also function from past similar situations. Like, if I stop now, you're going to escalate and you will crush me. So I cannot stop now. I have to prove my point that I'm right. So if we do that, and then the other person is also trying to do that, nobody wants to lose. So everyone wants to win, at least communicating their position and making it clear. That's what they are trying. So what I would say is, I'm not saying, Jane, answering your question, I'm not asking you to suppress your emotions and become subservient and accept like, oh, it's all my fault. Don't do that, because if you do that, you are being passive aggressive. In a way, you are resisting, but you are not resisting outwards. So you're just resisting and like going into this, like, okay, whatever, oh, it's all my fault. Forget it. Let's move on. That doesn't work. Doesn't work for you and doesn't work for the other person, because they are going to ask you like, what are you sorry for? Like, you're just playing this game now. You're just ignoring me. So they are also going to continue the fight. So this approach, I call this, maybe in the course or somewhere else, we can discuss much more in detail. I call it the art of suffering properly. If you know how to suffer properly when somebody is hurting you, you are not re-engaging them with more resistance, with more escalation. So their energy vis-a-vis you would frizzle out, if that is a word, right? Frizzle out. Yes, it will frizzle out. They may be the same person. I've done this with bullies, somebody dominating, trying to bully me. And then I would see like, oh my God, Rajesh, you are getting hooked on into it, because I have a history of it. So you are getting hooked on. I take responsibility. I stand myself down in that. What happens is that person who may continue to be a bully with everyone else would not do it to me over time, because initially they will continue 1, 2, 3, 4 times. By the 5th time, there is no equally matching, resistance energy there. So it fizzles out. With somebody else, they would go back. With some other situation, they may be playing that game, but less with you or never with you. So this is the beauty of this path, of this method. You take responsibility, not for the situation. I'm not saying it's your fault. No. You take responsibility for the emotion you go through, for the triggers that you went through, and the reactions you have. When you do that internally, the other person cannot fight you. It also brings another aspect. Then you have the energy left to listen to the other person, because the other person is also hurting. Remember that. So you have the energy and the awareness left to listen to the other person. Then you listen like, oh my goodness, you are angry and I understand, because you want to be understood too. So when we open up like, you want to be understood too, okay, I'm sitting back, let me try to understand you. That is it's a circuit breaker, because that's what they are fighting for. Most people throw what do you call that, scenario, situations, facts, when we are fighting, like on that day, on this day, at this time, you said this word, and why? Not because they want to prove that point, whether it is right or wrong. It's because they want us to understand their feelings. They want to understand, show them like, please understand me, please. I'm trying to show something. Particularly with men and women, I'm generalizing here heavily, but men are more focused on facts, women are more focused on emotions, or a feminine is more focused on emotions. And when you communicate emotions, you are trying to make that guy understand, so you're bringing facts. But then it backfires, because that guy is going to address it with some logic. And then the whole point of communicating emotions falls flat. Then men say that, she is impossible. She never forgets a fight. Even though I've said sorry a million times, it comes back to haunt you forever. That is not true. The reason why it appears true is because men don't listen to emotions, so they have to be shown a fact again. So I would say, if men only learn to listen to the emotion that is being shared instead of the situation, they could solve the problem much earlier.
We need to get you to teach so many men that.
Yes, I see one man with Karine. I don't see any other men here. Yeah. That was the first thing I noticed.
Oh. Yeah. We don't. Sometimes we have men. Sometimes we have. Maybe the men will watch the recording. Who knows? We live in hope.
But I have to finish with this one line on that, because it took me a lot of time to get that clarity in my life. Because it was like, it is not that I didn't want to know, but it was so difficult for me to know that part. It was like going against my instincts so much. But then once I got that clarity, I thought like, wow, man, this is powerful. Because what they are trying to communicate is emotion, but then they are using bad examples.
Yeah, there is so much around this subject, because we're running out of time, because I would like to talk about codependent relationships, the whole thing about being independent in the relationship, vulnerability. Will you come again?
I can come again. I can continue.
I would love to get into this subject about the different types of relationships, and also because we've ended up talking about couples quite a bit. But for example, where you would be able to shout out loud and say something, in that feeling of emotion to someone you're very close with. You wouldn't be able to do that in a work environment, or you wouldn't be able to do that so much in a shop or wherever, and then you suppress it, and then you build up your story. Of course, that's when your story starts building up of, how you've been aggrieved and all these other things that go in our minds, and then it becomes a bigger and bigger story. Because we adapt, don't we, depending who we're with at the time. Like our reactions. Do you suggest that we just have the same approach with everyone that we're interacting with?
Yes, Yes, because in a big picture, we are interacting with expectations, and expectations fulfilled, not fulfilled, our level of closeness, understand our mainly our how we want to be treated, how we want to be understood, and how we want to be seen. It's the same, but with different relationships, we expose different aspects of ourselves. We expose maybe the work personality in a work scenario. So then you would want to be seen as that personality. If somebody says you are such a loving person at work, you may feel it's incongruous. Like, what are you talking? This is inappropriate. So it is acceptance of the right aspects of ourselves. So wherever the conflict is, the general rule is turn attention inwards, see what is getting triggered, take responsibility for that trigger, and then resolve your emotions and then get back to that person. Because if you don't resolve yourself, you're going to say something, do something, or the opposite of it, not say anything or not do anything. And we end up increasing or escalating the problem.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, this is what we're going to do now. We'll talk a little bit about your retreats that are coming up, because I do want to touch on them, because I think they're, I've looked at them in detail. We actually sent a newsletter out yesterday about them, but I think they're incredible opportunities to go and really do some deep work there and just expand on this that you're talking about. And then after that, would you close us out with a little meditation? Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Rajesh does the most amazing meditations, but so we'll maybe we'll go beyond a bit, 5-10 minutes. Feel free to leave if you have to be somewhere, but if you can spare the time, then stay in there, benefit from Rajesh's beautiful meditation. So tell us about the retreats.
So we have 3 retreats coming up in Portugal, in a place called Longevity Health and Wellness Hotel in the south of Portugal, Alvor. And the first one starts on the 1st to the 5th of April, which is on stress and balance and well-being. So this will be mainly working at the initial level on tools and methods of how to resolve our stress, not only tools and practices, but also how to go into a restful place. If you Google tools, today you got all the tools. I'm not going to teach you tools. But then the whole purpose of the retreat is to help you ease into a place of restfulness. And then once you have a taste of restfulness, then all the tools and practices are there to support you and sustain that restfulness when we get back home. So we intend to create that space by relaxing and connecting with the parasympathetic nervous system, by connecting with our heart, and then, and also understanding from an intellectual level where we come from, what gets triggered in us. So this will be the stress, balance and well-being retreat. The second one, from the 8th to the 13th, is on embracing connection, which is on relationships, all forms of relationships. And then mainly, as I was telling Stella the other day, we oscillate. In relationship, we either close ourselves off and feel lonely because we are scared of getting hurt, or we go the other end, we throw ourselves completely in, where we are speaking about dependent or codependent relationships, throw ourselves completely at the mercy of others and feel powerless. So, but these are extremes. So there is so much between, how we can actually respond in relationships and embrace the connections that come our way. So that is a 5-night, 5-night, 4 full days event. That is the second retreat from the 8th to the 13th. I would be really happy if you guys can join that. And then the third one is called Rising Awareness Meditation Retreat, which is like purely meditation. So we bring in Buddhist meditation tools with Hindu meditation tools, and then we also take in a journey into the heart. So it will be training the mind and opening the heart. That will be a 6-day, and really like calming meditation retreat. Like fully, we'll be having certain principles and sutras, as they say, that we will also be discussing every day for a while, but mostly meditating. If you have already started some kind of mindfulness or meditation practice and you want to deepen it, it's a beautiful place to be. And if you are a complete beginner, it's also a good place to be, because we start from the beginning, from the start, first step, and we then go deeper into that journey. So this is about the upcoming retreats. We'll be doing more in the coming months as well, in Europe and around the world. So really love to stay in touch with you.
Yeah, we'll keep everyone updated. And if you're interested in any of those retreats, just drop us a line. They're on our website, and we sent a newsletter yesterday. And gosh, they sound amazing. Actually, all three of them sound amazing. I think as you were talking about one, I was like, oh, that sounds good. And then the next one, I was like, oh yeah, I really want to go on that one. The meditation one sounds superb. But anyway, talking of meditation, let's
do a simple practice, right? Okay.
Yeah.
You know, if you can stay nice, I will take 4 to 5 minutes of your time, so that it gives us a little bit time to get into ourselves. So please sit back comfortably. You know, if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can do so. If you are not uncomfortable, you can keep your eyes open. That is fine. Keep it softly focused in front of you, and allow your body to sit in the most comfortable posture that you can. And try to keep your body still. Easy still, not ramrod straight or anything, just easy, relaxed. Being relaxed is important. Being a bit still is important, not doing any unnecessary scratching and involuntary movements. And then gently being attentive to what is happening in me, around me. Now gently spread your awareness to the space around you, your room, the temperature in the room, any other sounds and noises. Any other sounds outside. Just knowing what is happening around you. Now take 3 to 4 deep breaths. Just breathing in easy and breathing out, letting go of any stored tension in your body. 3 to 4 deep breaths. If you have a feeling that you want a few more deep breaths, just continue. If not, just be relaxed. and ask one question to yourself. What do I really expect in a relationship? You can put any relationship there. It could be with your partner, your parent, your child, friend, or at work. So the question is, what do I really expect? Or what is my real need in this relationship that I expect from this person? Your need, it's not about like, oh, I expect that they are not lazy or anything about them, but it's about you, with respect to you. For example, like, I wish they listen to me. I wish they treat me better. I wish they understand me in this way. So just ask this question. What is my expectation or my real need? Remember, it is not to blame the other person. It is to know ourselves. So please do not go tangentially, like I've told him 1,000 times, it never happens, I don't know. Don't go there. Your expectations might be simple. You might be wanted to be treated in a particular way, or heard, or understood, or accepted, particularly when you make mistakes, particularly when you are caught up in your emotional states or your habits. Now ask the next question. Am I communicating my needs in the best way possible that they would understand and act upon it? See, communication is basically dependent on the receiver. So the question is, am I communicating properly in the best way that the other person can understand and respond? Maybe yes, maybe no, but just as an open question, I want you to ask yourself. Because sometimes your communication has worked, and some other times it hasn't. So what was the difference when it had worked? From your side, what was different? Take a deep breath. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May each one of us be peaceful. Thank you. Gently open your eyes, please.
Thank you, Rajesh. Beautiful, beautiful way to end that very interesting conversation. And yeah, thank you for sharing some of your wisdom. I really want you to come back. I'm going to send you a note afterwards, see when because I was thinking we need a part 2. We definitely need a part 2. This is such a big subject. But yeah, thank you very much for your time, for your wisdom,
Thank you.
for everything.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thank you everyone
it's
for
beautiful
coming
to connect.
along. Yeah, coming along. Have a beautiful weekend. Great week ahead. We'll be in touch with the in due course with the next event. And in the meantime, stay well, stay happy, and yeah, go for that peace within. I love that. Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye all. Bye bye.
Bye bye.